Should you wait for the brand new Tacoma or buy a 2023 Tacoma? So we're going to be talking about price, equipment, what we can expect to get out of the new Tacoma, and what was really lacking on the previous Tacoma, because there were some things that, could definitely use a bit of improvement on the outgoing Tacoma. Don't take this the wrong way, Toyota fans. There's some things that need improving on the current Ranger. So, of course, we're going to slide in a little conversation on whether we should wait on a new Ranger and whether we should wait on a new Colorado or Canyon. And how do you pick between these three models? Well, I think this show is really going to help you out. So watch to the end. You will know, I think from the conversation we're about to have together, you're going to know which mid-size truck is the right truck for you. And I'm also going to make sure you're not going to get fooled and getting the wrong truck at the wrong time. Because we all know for the last 2 years, 2.5 years, prices have been very high on trucks. And not the whole time. They've slowly gone up. And the big price increases were actually mid-2022 to end of 2022 and then beginning of 2023. But will we see prices go down? Well, let's talk about that and start off the topic with the Tacoma. So the new 2024 Tacoma will have improvements, folks. It should handle better and it should be more comfortable on the rough roads, as well as handle better on smooth roads. So basically what I'm trying to say, and I'll show you why, so stay tuned, you're going to find out why the new Tacoma is going to be better in the bendies and over the bumpies, if I can say it. Better than the bendies, better over the bumpies, and that's hard because usually when a vehicle becomes stiffer, so better in the corners, less body roll, well then it usually means it's going to be a lot harsher, a much rougher ride. But in that category, the Tacoma had a lot of space for improvement, and I'm very confident that the new Tacoma is really going to address this topic, this issue, really. We'll call it an issue. Hopefully no one gets too offended and doesn't write me too many hateful comments, but there's room for improvement, and a lot of that is going to be handled with the new fully boxed in frame. Should take care of about half of what needed to get improved on. So the Ford Ranger currently uses a fully boxed in frame. It's the best frame setup. And of course, unlike, the Maverick down here that we're going to talk about later on in the show, unlike the Maverick is a unibody, just like pretty much every SUV on the market right now. They're pretty much all unibody, meaning the bottom of the vehicle kind of links up with everything else. There's no physical frame. The bottom of the vehicle is basically a platform. And with it being a platform, there's some advantages and disadvantages. So one of the general disadvantages of having a full frame is, well, when you have a frame, you can kind of feel it. They offer a rougher ride generally, but you can put weight in the box. Now, surprisingly, the Maverick, despite being a unibody, you can still put 1,500 pounds. Its payload is 1,500 pounds, and you could theoretically put it all in the box, but then the driver would have to weigh nothing. So a little debate over that because, Ford has always said 1,500 pounds you can put in the box, gave examples of it, but the overall payload is also 1,500 pounds. So normally you have to, your GVWR, gross vehicle weight rating, includes the people in the vehicle. So not sure how to make sense of that, but let's stay on the Tacoma for the moment. Maverick talk, and of course, will GM bring back the S10, a little bit of S10? Will GM have its own little below mid-size truck, the compact truck? But this mid-size truck is going towards a fully boxed in frame, meaning basically how the frame works. If you think of a ladder, so I'll do it this way. If you think of a ladder with all its cross members, well, those cross members are going to be going right into the frame, welded into the frame. There are other ways to do the frame. You can bolt it on top of the frame, glue it on top or below of the frame. Glue, weld, not the greatest. Bolt in, fully boxed in with welds is the best setup. And that's what the Ranger has. And it's not by surprise that the Ranger was king when it came to overall towing. And of course, it could had the most overall torque. Let's see what the Tacoma is going to bring. But that's another area for a little bit of weakness, you could say, in the current 2023 Tacoma. It currently tows, all the competition basically is towing 7,500 pounds. The Ranger tows 7,500 pounds. And this, with the 6-cylinder, was towing 6,600 to 6,800 pounds. And with the 4-cylinder, it was pulling 3,800 pounds. However, the 6-cylinder early on had a bit of problems in regards to reliability. It actually had some issues. That's pretty rare for a powertrain at Toyota to have issues. They come every blue moon, so they are rare occurrences. Generally, their transmissions are very reliable, as well as their motors. They don't change them very often, but at first, the 6-cylinder had some issues in regards to reliability, and I think it tainted the reputation of the current model Tacoma. So this goes back to 2016, 2017. There were some issues, but the 4-cylinder was unbelievably reliable, but then lower towing, right? 3,800 pounds, that's pretty anemic, pretty weak for the category. Now, someone was mentioning that they had an 85 Toyota truck. Yeah, I'm sure it was absolutely bulletproof. But when you bring on a new model, of course, there's risks. So this new model will have its own set of risks. I think they're going to be using some similar motors, actually motors that are already in existence. And I'm thinking they're probably going to be dropping the 6-cylinder. But let's talk about that in just a moment, because they do have their TRD Pro model. And you need to have a lot of torque in that model to compete, because the Ford Ranger is offering the 3-liter twin turbo in the Ford Raptor. So the TRD Pro needs to bring their A game, and they need to bring a whole lot of power. But let's talk about this Tacoma. So the 2.7-liter inline 4-cylinder is famously reliable, but it's well overdue for a change. Likely, it's getting replaced by the 2.4-liter 4-cylinder, which doesn't sound like, an improvement, 2.7-liter to 2.4-liter, but it is an improvement, because if it does get the 2.4-liter, that means it should get 275 horsepower and 315 pound-feet of torque. Guess what? The Ford Ranger's 2.3-liter 4-cylinder, that's basically the Ranger numbers right there. And it has allowed the Ranger to tow 7,500 pounds all along. Now, of course, towing more, a fully boxed-in frame like the Ford Ranger, makes the Tacoma more competitive. And I say more competitive, but let's remember, this has been the #1 selling mid-size truck. Now, of course, this year, the Ranger, end of the line, they made less to produce more Broncos. So all you Bronco people who are watching right now, we're all happy with that news. Heck, I checked the date, March 30th, 2023 Bronco order is scheduled now. It's been pushed back again. It's now being scheduled for the week of June 19th, but still very quick order to build time on such a popular model. Of course, I've taken the Wild Track with a soft top, but it's actually gotten built faster than expected, because here's news. We'll recap it in the other episode and talk more about it, but used prices are going down. Not on all models, but the Ford Lightning, that's a model that's taking a big hit on trade-in values. And generally the overall market, I do suspect and expect that it's going to continue to go down. This spring, the market was going up in used, but that's because there had been a big drop during the winter months when traditionally less vehicles get sold. There had been a drop, and it started coming back up at the end of February. March went up. April, I think we're going to start seeing used prices go down. I'm definitely starting live right now this week, starting to see trades come in just a little bit less than last month. Now, to the Tacoma, if you have a current Tacoma, you might want to consider trading it in while used prices are still historically very high. I do suspect this summer, next fall, these high interest rates are going to drop officially, and we'll start noticing the data come in, so we'll find out if I'm right. But I do believe we're going to start seeing these prices go down. And I'm sorry, I did miss the question on the Highlander, and Marie is actually feeling quite ill. So she's not here. I almost canceled this show because I wasn't feeling well, but I ate some ginger, drank some water, and felt better. But continuing along with the Tacoma, here's another issue if you get the current model. The current 6-speed, beyond just being horribly outdated, which isn't that big of a problem, but the current engines with the current transmission offer a few problems. Famously poor fuel economy. And normally, though, with Toyota, it means an absolutely reliable vehicle that you would not complain about anything on it, except Toyotas traditionally are a little boring on the inside. They lack gadgets, and this is the king of lacking gadgets. Now, the issue with the 6-speed transmission is that it's both unrefined and the transmission is confused. It is a confused, very confused transmission because quite common, people complain about it. It seems to be searching all over the place, looking for what gear it should be in. And on top of that, there's a delay in between gears. Once it does decide what gear it wants to go into, there can be a delay switching into it. So those are pretty common complaints. And unlike, Ford had their 10-speed transmission in 2017, 18, 2019, customers complained about this. Ford went back to the writing board and, pulled out a recall for a bulletin or a recall for anyone that does complain of the transmission seeming to not know what gear it wants to go into or hesitating, or then when it does go into gear, kind of having a bit of a clunk. Now, long term, that's not going to break anything. So Ford could have sat back and said, nope, we're not doing a recall on this. Journalists will eat us alive. We need to pretend, just tell people, that's fine. You don't like it. That's your problem. It's built that way. And, they'd be fine doing that. They get by with it because it's not going to lead to the transmission breaking. But Ford does recalls. They want to keep their customers happy, so they reprogrammed that entire transmission. And I can say I have had a lot of 10 speeds. I've felt and dealt with the problem. I had it on my 2018 Mustang GT. That transmission hesitated before the reprogramming was offered. I sold it. I was a little frustrated with the transmission, and guess what? My 2022 Mustang GT, the transmission is incredible. People who do have the years that may or may not be affected, but if they're in the percentage that are affected, you just go to your dealer and you'll get that transmission reprogrammed. Now, Toyota's 6-speed transmission never had an effective reprogram. If you're affected by that, confused, delayed transmission, it's delayed into going into its gear, you just have to live with that annoyance. Now, here's another reason why you probably want to wait for the Tacoma. It's likely getting a manual gearbox. Tim Bartz, thank you very much, Ford Video Guy, for making it into the show. You're a huge help. I really appreciate it, and we'll be watching your show tomorrow night with everyone here as well. Now, fourth reason you probably want to wait for the new Tacoma is the interior will be much more upscale. And I have confidence in that. We don't have any leaked photos of the interior, but it's been a continued, complaint, you could say. But guess what? It's going to happen. And I'll bet on it because it happened with the Tundra. And if you look at the Tundra, that's the F-150 competitor. It competes with the 1500s from Dodge as well as GM. The Tacoma, pretty much, same design philosophy. You see with the Tacoma, that's the new Tacoma right there. And the new Tacoma that got leaked, well, new. It's not official, but it came from the Toyota website. So it's a leaked photo. It's going to be that. And you can really see all the similarities that it has with the Tundra. You've got, let's zoom in here if I can. I cannot, but you can see right here, you've got very similar lights. You've got the spacing underneath the lights. You've got the big grille up front. Of course, Toyota doesn't want to throw in tow hooks. I really hope the new Tacoma will have tow hooks. I highly doubt it. But that's just a must for anything that you're calling an off-roader. And it's even just, if you have a farm, someone's stuck in the field, you pull them out. If you have a friend that has a Dodge Ram, he's going to do something crazy. He's going to get stuck somewhere, and you're your friend. You got to pull him out. You need those tow hooks. I don't know, maybe Toyota truck owners don't have friends or they never get stuck and they only have friends that also have Toyotas. But I had a friend who had a Tacoma, and I can definitely tell you they do get stuck. He got stuck on my farm, and no tow hooks. But anyways, I highly doubt that's going to happen. But that's your new Tacoma. I think look-wise, that's very subjective. I think it's worth waiting for versus the 2023. But let's continue this list of roughly, let's see right here. We've got a few more to go through. We've got a total of 12 reasons why you should wait for the new 2023. So the fourth point I was making is the interior will be upscale. The new Tundra has a much more upscale interior, and I think like the Tundra, we can expect an 8-inch touchscreen as a base model for the Tacoma. So they should all get likely an 8-inch touchscreen, and they need to be offering that on every model if they want to compete. Heck, the new Ranger, your choices are a big screen or a very big screen. So if this wants to, stay relevant, you could say, of course, it is the mid-size truck to beat. It's number one in sales, but they got to stay relevant. They've been reusing parts for too long here. They should likely get the Tundra's 14-inch touchscreen. So that will look very much upscale, and the new Ranger interior does look very upscale. And of course, it hasn't officially been unveiled. It's gonna get unveiled May 10th. I think it's funny. We see publicity shots at the Ranger camp with a blanket, a black tarp, a black blanket over the Ranger, as if they really need to hide this thing. Folks, it's out in Europe, and it's not necessarily going to be identical, but it's going to be very similar. So that's why I can sort of talk about two vehicles that are officially not unveiled, but if you follow things closely, we know what we're getting. So fifth point to wait for a new Tacoma. Beyond the fact that, some will say, wait 1 month, wait 2 months, prices will go down. Well, guess what? When prices go down on the new, your trade is also going to go down. So it's all relevant. Now is a very good time. Well, now's a good time to buy as much as in 2 months, it's going to be a good time to buy. Because if in 2 months, the new prices go down, your trade is also going to go down, because when supply of new goes up, that's why the used vehicles have been worth so much. There is no supply of new. But there's a trick to getting a Tacoma at the right price, and you're going to need to know it. So hang on, we're almost done this list. The fifth point right here is, let's hope that back seat gets more spacing, because the current model, it's hard to get an adult into the back seat, and it is also hard to get baby seats into the back seat. So Ford Video Guy saying that, yeah, Ranger's already out in Europe. So, you don't have to be an insider to know that we're getting something physically very, very similar. But the big question is going to be about powertrains for the Ranger, as well as box size. Will the new Ford Ranger, should you wait for a new Ranger because maybe we'll get a 6-foot box with the big cab? We might. That's still not completely ruled out, unless a Ford Video Guy wants to correct me on that, but I don't think it's completely ruled out yet. And I don't think it's completely ruled out yet in regards to getting an optional 6-cylinder. Optional, and that's, how I understood a little bit of internal talk. I understood that I understood the word optional. Maybe the optional just meant, yeah, you have the option to buy a Raptor, because we all know that's going to have a 6-cylinder twin turbo 3-liter engine like they have on the Explorer ST and Lincoln Aviator. Fantastic, incredible engine. This guy's going to have a challenge offering an engine as good as that 3-liter, as great as that 3-liter V6 twin turbo. But these are points that the new Tacoma needs to address. But let's hope we get a bigger back seat for baby seats and adults. It is currently cramped in the back seat of a Tacoma. So would I buy a 22 or 23 Tacoma or a 2020, a used one? Well, Tacomas, the trade-in prices, the buyback prices of a used Tacoma are very, very high. Heck, a 10-year-old Tacoma, the prices are extremely high. If you're not paying that cash and you're financing that with a bank at 8, 9, or 10% interest, it really does make you want to buy a new one. But if you do buy a new one, don't be fooled. A lot of dealers are going to want a small fortune. They're going to sell them over the internet price, and you got to be prepared. So we'll talk about what you need to know to actually get this new Tacoma at a price that makes sense. And it's important to not pay an extra $5 or very common at Tacoma, $7,000 more for a model, because the issue is what happens if in 1, 2, or 5 years you want to switch it. Well, if you paid over $5,000 or $7,000 for it, you're not getting that money back when you trade it in. It's gone. Just because you paid too much for the vehicle up front doesn't mean you're going to get too much for it in the end. Market dictates the price of used vehicles. So the sixth reason why you should wait for the new model, and actually you shouldn't wait for this. If you're expecting bigger box sizes out of the new Tacoma, and that's the only reason why you're waiting, get the current model. Try to find a dealer that will sell it to you at the actual internet price, because folks, Toyota has a problem. Ford got a whole lot of heat for this, and Toyota really slid under the radar. But a lot of Toyota dealerships are owned by the same corporations. And actually, there's roughly 13 states where it's just 2 corporations that have all the dealerships across over 13 states. And what happens there is if you want to buy one of their vehicles, you have to take it with, they don't have markups, but they have required accessories. So, theft protection at $3,000, and that theft protection is fantastic, but is only worth $500 or $600. It's likely a system called Tag, and it hides all sorts of little GPS trackers across the vehicle, so people don't want to steal it. And if they do steal it, your vehicle's going to be found. So that and other things like, tinted windows, nitrogen in the tires. If the vehicle came with nitrous, then maybe it'd be worth paying a few $1,000s more for. But no, sorry, nitrogen in the tires at whatever they feel like charging. But at the end of the day, those dealers all have the same corporation running them, the same 2 corporations. They tell the dealers you have to have all this on your vehicles so that, the price is fair and even across the board in all those states. But 1, you can't really save yourself and find a better price. And 2, you're paying those add-ons. If you don't pay them, you're not getting them. And that's why Toyota sales, a big part of why Toyota sales have gone down is that. That's a major problem. So continuing right along, don't wait for the new Tacoma if you're expecting bigger bed sizes. You're still going to have a 6 foot and 2 inch box and a 5.5 foot box. However, the Tacoma, the current model, it's known. Don't hate on me for this. I'm just saying it as it is. The AC has had a number of complaints towards the AC for being both occasionally noisy and always not being cold enough. And of course, it actually hasn't been very reliable. The actual AC unit, the compressor of the AC unit, the compressor has been unreliable and has, broken at a relatively high percentage. So it's a well-known problem. And likely this new model is going to be going with a new supplier, and they're going to pay maybe the current supplier more to have a better quality unit. But one way or another, this thing is almost certainly going to get better air conditioning, colder air conditioning, quieter air conditioning with a more reliable compressor unit, because now is their chance to rectify something that people have been complaining about since 2016. Now, number 8. 8th reason why you should wait for this new Tacoma. And let's get some other pictures of this. I think we're all getting tired of this background photo here. So another reason why we should wait for this new Tacoma right here is TRD and TRD Pro have been popular and great at off-roading. That's just a fact. And they've been popular and great at off-roading due to selectable drive modes, low range gearing, off-road suspension, selectable traction. So right now, Ranger offers all those things. The Bronco offers all that and more, because you have trail turn assist. You've got off-road cruise control, but I expect the new model, this Tacoma, might not get trail turn assist. Trail turn assist is when one of your back wheels, you select which back wheel by turning your steering wheel completely to the end, let's say to the right, it'll lock your back right wheel and you will turn on a dime. Turning on a dime means literally you've got your vehicle and it just turns, because when that's locked and the other wheels are turning, you're gonna turn, swipe that vehicle right around, which is great for making it around tight corners when you're off-roading or just showing off. Having very interesting donuts. That's going to continue on the TRD and TRD Pro, but price will increase, and price is going to increase. But once this starts to come out and starts to be available on lots, any remaining 2023s, maybe then the dealers are going to be more negotiable, that they won't have these, let's call it markup, but because they don't consider it markup because they have these added on, benefits, accessories, theft protection, but at the price they're charging for those things, it's a hidden markup. So you might want to wait for a 23 if you're happy with a lower tech, low gadget vehicle, and if none of these things bother you. But there's a few more things that might bother you and that this almost certainly will improve on. So 9th reason, Toyota might be coming out with a Trail Hunter edition, and they kind of have to if they want to compete with GM, Chevrolet, and the Ford Ranger, the Ford Ranger Raptor, and GM with their, I believe it is the Bison. I haven't looked, in the past it's been the ZR2, and the ZR2 has been a very interesting and quality off-roader. But it's almost certainly this Trail Hunter, if it comes out, will come out with better approach angles, more skid plates, and hopefully, but almost very unlikely, actual trail hooks, the tow hooks. Sorry, we could call them trail hooks, but we also need them on farms and sometimes construction sites, or even if you have a lawn business. If you've got a lawn, doing lawns and gardens, landscaping business. When I worked a long time ago in the summer, would work with a landscaping company. Heck, we got the truck stuck once in a while, and we needed those tow hooks to get the vehicle out, because sometimes you can't always rely on getting the vehicle out from the back bumper. Some people will say, you don't need tow hooks. You've got, just leave a ball on your back hitch. Well, sometimes you can't access what's behind the vehicle, and the only option is to pull it out. And you want actual tow hooks. And you certainly don't want to do like some goofballs and attach to the bumper, because then you rip off the bumper, and when that thing rips off, you might be taking someone's leg out with it. Be very safe, folks, when you tow, when you use straps. Think for a long time before you hit that gas pedal. If they snap, someone could die. If you're using cheap tow hooks or a cheap hook and it breaks, someone could be injured for life or even die. So be smart. Think twice. If you've got a wife, ask her. This isn't one of those times to say, hold my beer. Now, 10th reason, the 2024 Tacoma will likely address the current bumpy ride. So if you do get a 2022, 2023, just a previous model Tacoma, do expect a bit of a bumpy ride. But the 2024 is almost certainly getting coil springs for the first time instead of leaf springs. And this should make a huge difference for that ride quality. Now, if you take the fact that it's getting coil springs and you take the fact that it's getting a fully boxed in frame, and I should say very likely because this isn't officially unveiled, but with those two factors, this is going to diminish body roll greatly in the bendies and also take bumps in a much more modern and acceptable way. So 11th reason, 2024 stiffer chassis with lower center of gravity for the new model means less roll in the corners. So you've got the three factors helping out just the overall ride quality. And the 12th and final reason, you should wait for the new Tacoma. Let's, for the last one, before we get off to Ford stuff, thank you Tacoma 4G for getting these leaked photos out. 12th reason for waiting for this bad boy, and let's just focus in on that front grille because it is pretty good looking by my standards. Marie isn't here to comment about design, unfortunately, but 12th reason, the 2023 and older Tacomas are not as fuel efficient as advertised. My buddy was getting 18 liters per 100 kilometers, which actually at the 15 liters per 100 kilometers, it's the same as miles per gallon. So it's about 13 and a half, 14 miles per gallon on his Tacoma. And yes, he drove hard, but the 6-cylinder is a motor that drank a lot of fuel, but didn't actually return an exciting drive. If you were hard on the pedal, what you got was pretty decent acceleration, but you weren't getting the type of acceleration and excitement generated from that power that warranted that kind of really, quite frankly, horrible fuel economy. Because if you look at the F-150, a much more capable truck, it can tow a lot more, it can have a lot more weight in the bed. Remember, this is the number one selling mid-size truck, but the Ranger was beating it in torque, beating it in towing, and beating it in payload. It just didn't come anywhere close to beating it in sales for whatever reason. But when I know the reason, the Tacoma has an incredible long history of reliability, but those frickin' Ford Rangers are pretty unkillable as well. But these things have had incredible resale value. But that 6-cylinder was nothing like the 2.7 liter 6-cylinder twin turbo engine in the F-150. In the F-150, that thing accelerates wildly well. And if you're really, really careful, you're getting about, generally 11 to 13 liters per 100 kilometers. And if you're really pretty hard on it, you get about 16 or 17 liters per 100 kilometers. But that's like being very, very hard on it and getting incredible results. A whole lot of fun to drive, incredible acceleration, not the experience you got out of the 6-cylinder with the Tacoma. It was a little boring, just like I find the Jeep's 6-cylinder is not an engine that I find exciting. It gets the job done. I actually prefer the torque on the 4xe. Now, I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with me because it's a plug-in and whatnot, but the 4xe from Jeep has incredible torque. It's an exciting engine. But speaking of engines, we're focused on the engine here, and you should wait for a brand new Tacoma, or in a moment, we'll say maybe you should get a Ranger, a Canyon, or a Colorado. But why should you also wait for this model? The big 12th reason is likely their 2.7 liter 4-cylinder, which I'm not a fan of on the current Tacoma, even though it's been very reliable. It's likely getting replaced by a 2.4 liter engine, and that could provide 349 to 366 horsepower if it's the hybrid 2.4 liter coming out of, the Lexus RS. And whether it gets 349 horsepower, like the power it makes when that engine's used at Toyota, or 366 horsepower, like the power it makes at Lexus, that's incredible power, folks. That would be, if that hybrid is a very low cost engine, if they can make enough of those engines, and if they're reliable and fuel efficient, so all problems that the bigger brother, the Tundra, the new Tundra, when they came out with their 3.5 liter hybrid engine, very, sounds a lot like Ford's Power Boost, but Toyota had a lot of trouble providing enough of those engines, and the first few weren't all that reliable. It had issues. So the Tacoma could get that 2.4 liter hybrid engine. If it gets anywhere from 349 horsepower to 366 horsepower, it will be a blast. And when you're easy on the pedal, it should finally actually offer decent fuel efficient. And I'm not going to say great fuel efficient, because the hybrid engine in the Tundra is not incredibly fuel efficient. It's just finally acceptable, because the Tundra with the V8 did not provide acceptable fuel efficiency. They're 15 years behind. It was frustrating. I would have loved over the years to have various Toyota trucks, but fuel efficiency is important to me unless it's offering me something remarkable, like Jeep's 392. Okay, it's horrible on fuel, but that thing is wildly fast and sounds wildly good. It's also wildly expensive, folks. So things have to balance out, and in the end, once things have balanced out, they need to be in my favor. And I felt the Toyota trucks, one of their huge selling points was the resale of the Tacoma. Now, I would not get the current Tacoma model. I actually almost would get the current Ranger, Ford Ranger, as a Tremor model because it tows the most, it has the highest payload, it's a good off-road, very good off-road machine. But I'd also wait for the new Ford Ranger because I personally love the styling of the new Ford Ranger. And the current Ford Ranger has a bit of an issue of having an outdated interior. This has very much the previous Tacoma had very much an outdated interior. This Tacoma absolutely needed a refresh, and I highly suspect Toyota is going to hit a home run on every category. But my major concern is fuel efficiency and actual powertrain. So their 2.7 liter is going to get replaced by a 2.4 liter. Maybe not the hybrid, but definitely just the regular 2.4 liter that they're already using. So it's going to be reliable. They're almost certainly going to get rid of that 6-speed automatic transmission that has had issues. They're likely going to keep a manual and probably will be getting either an 8 or a 10 speed that's actually pleasant, that doesn't kind of stutter, isn't confused about what gear to go into, and doesn't take an unreasonable amount of time to actually transfer into that gear. But there's also the Ranger, and then there's Chevrolet to choose from. Now, Chevrolet and the Canyon, the big thing that impresses me is their 2.7 liter engine. When you get the 310 horsepower, and the horsepower isn't all that impressive. It's very good, but it's not, mind-blowing compared to the competition. But when you get it with 430 pound-feet of torque, that's incredible. However, when we're talking about the GMC Canyon, my main issue is that it still has the 8-speed transmission that GM never was willing to admit that it was also confused, not knowing what gear to go into, would sometimes shudder and shake and then delay and then go into gear. It was an unacceptable transmission, just like the 10-speed at Ford for certain owners for 2017, 18, 19. There was a percentage of people that would have some problems, but Ford offers them to be reprogrammed. GM never did that. They just kept telling people the transmission's fine, quit your complaining, go home. I'll take that when I'm 12 or 14 or 18. If my father tells me that, I'll take it as important advice. But when I've spent tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars, I'm not going to take that, and that's not acceptable. So that's my main concern. Otherwise, the ZR2 I think is a fantastic machine. Let's just have the ZR2 pop up here. Talk about the S10 and what this could mean. Is it going to be a Maverick competitor? So in case those are things that are worrying people, we will get to that. But the Canyon, the ZR2 is, we see it right here. Come on, people. We got to say, that's, whether, you're completely sold Toyota or completely sold Ford, that's a good looking truck. AT4 or the ZR2, whether you're GM or Chevrolet, it's the same truck, folks. You just get to pick which style you prefer, which one you feel is more in your, price versus whether it's upscale or not. They're both good looking options. They're both fantastic off-roaders. And guess what? All these new trucks are also expensive. Do not listen to the YouTubers yes, listen to the YouTubers that say prices are going to go down, but don't just, think it's going to go down and everything's going to be hunky-dory and everything's going to be fixed. First of all, the new models, the new Ford Ranger is going to cost more money than the current Ford Ranger. The new Toyota Tacoma is going to cost more money than the current Tacoma. And this new model came out before, they beat Toyota and Ford to the game, but they also cost more. And if ever people stop buying them and they start to collect dust on dealer lots, yes, interest rates will be, will be supported by the corporations, the manufacturers, and they'll pay to show you a lower interest rate, or they're going to offer rebates on it. So yes, the YouTubers that say wait 1 month, 2 months, 5, 6 months, prices will come down. Yes, prices will come down, but it's very important to be precise, and I want to educate. All these new models, the prices are going up compared to the current models. And if ever they collect dust and prices go down, the result is going to be a crashing in value on your trade-in. Now, if you don't have a trade-in, sure, wait for that to occur. But if you do have a trade-in, are you going to be better off? I think the used vehicles are going to get hurt more. If there's price decreases on these, you might see 2, 3, 4,000, whereas if your trade is currently worth 35, you could see $7,000, $8,000 drop off of your trade. So it's important to keep in mind. Now, what kind of prices can we expect for the Tacoma? Well, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. We can just head over to the Toyota Tacoma build and price 2023 site, and I can tell you folks, the Tacoma starts at $41,350. That's not the Tacoma you're going to want, because most people don't want a double cab. Most people don't want the base features. Mind you, it's probably the best value at Toyota because they're more upscale models. They're not offering you a whole lot more, because the current model, no matter what, you're getting kind of the least gadgety and the least flashy truck on the market. I think a lot of people are going to be drawn into either the TRD Off-Road or the TRD Pro. You're definitely going to want to go with the bigger cabin, because even with the bigger cabin, adults in the back is still an issue. Baby seats in the back is a major issue. But the Tacoma has a bigger box than the Ranger. So that's one thing that would, attract me towards the Tacoma. Mind you, I find the current Tacoma, with all the issues that we've talked about that need to be improved on, I would not get it for that reason. Now, thank you very much for all my Ford fans in the show. Well, not fans, but community members. Sorry, you're not fans of me. You're fans of Ford. So when I said my fans, I really meant all my community members who are Ford fans. I'm also a Ford fan, so us Ford fans. For us Ford fans, there are definitely some draws to the Tacoma, even if it's not, maybe the brand we normally buy. The box is a big one. And will the Ranger address this? Well, let's just finish up talking about price. A lot of people are going to be looking at a TRD Off-Road. Common model that gets sold, but it's currently roughly $52,000, and you can expect the price to go up on that for the new model by $2,000 to $4,000. So we're going to be talking roughly $54,000, $56,000. And if you go with the TRD Pro, well, you're going to be talking about a 23 is $66,000. So zoom in right there, get my head out of the way. Sorry, folks. $66,000. At 7.39 interest rate now. $66,000 at 7.39 interest is horribly, and I do like that Outsider Reviews is brand agnostic. So thank you for sticking with me. I'm just very open-minded. My preference just means that's who I'll check out first and last, but I could buy something in between. And for Marie, we've almost bought her 3 different Jeeps. They only got canceled out because their 6-cylinder is horribly boring, and it didn't do so well on the bumps, and it did poorly when you add the bendies, go into the bendies at a decent speed and hit those bumps. Not pleasant at all. Kind of scared me a little. And I don't need just a little bit of an advantage when, the Jeep has its advantage when rock crawling. But it's not as if the Bronco's fantastic at, let's say the Bronco is a 95% out of 100 on rock crawling. Well, if the Jeep comes in at 97, it's like, well, no, there's other aspects that carry a lot of importance as well. I want to be able to crawl to the mall really well too. Just a little joke, because it seems people always get bothered to see a Bronco that's not on an off-road trail. Thank you for the support, Byron. Now, $66,000 for a Tacoma is crazy. But then when you consider the new one is probably going to be 70,000 US for a TRD Pro with the cab you're going to want, that's a lot of money, folks. What I can say, great resale. The Ranger also has a great resale as well. But I really like that 2.7 liter over on the AT4 and the Canyon. And I also like the look of those machines. So I think they're all machines that you can consider. And I think it's going to be worth testing. Do test drives on these vehicles and figure out which one is right for you. Tim, enjoy your dinner. Thank you so much for being on the show tonight. Now, out of all these new vehicles, I need to know what engine options are going to be on this, because currently the engine options were a little boring, and I would definitely have gone with either a Ranger or that new 2.7 liter is sounding fantastic in the Canyon in the AT4. The new Ranger is going to handle better. It's going to take bumps better, and we might get a 6-foot box. May 10th, we'll know officially, so stay around. Hit that bell notification so you don't miss out when we talk about it. But there's some rumors going around at Ford, and it made us, we knew there was going to be an optional V6. We were told in advance, but then when optional V6, they announced it officially for the Raptor 3-liter V6 twin turbo. And a lot of us were thinking, well, is the option to buy the Raptor? Because often optional means, you can option it on different trims. So I'm still hoping that the North American Wild Track is going to have an optional V6. So why not the 2.7 liter? Do remember, folks, the brand new Ford Ranger is now going to be identical frame as the Bronco. Because currently, if you look at a 23 Ranger and a 23 Bronco, the frames aren't identical. The Bronco frame, you could say, has modifications and upgrades to it. And the new Ranger is going to get those modifications and upgrades. So the 2.7 liter fits in there. And the 10-speed is a superior transmission, I feel, from what's currently offered. It's definitely better than GM's 8-speed, which, have they really corrected the 8-speed? They're calling it their new 8-speed, but they didn't seem to all these years have a problem with numerous people, many people complaining about the 8-speed, not knowing what gear to go into, delays, sometimes just kind of speeding up and advancing, shuddering a bit. It's not great, but the 10-speed now is fantastic. I love the 10-speed. I have it in my Mustang. I've had it not just in the Mustang, but I've had so many vehicles, it's hard to remember, but I've had that 10-speed in trucks before. I've had it in a bunch of Mustangs. I've driven it in the Ranger. It's a fantastic 10-speed transmission. It's smooth. It's smart. It seems to know what gear to be in. And that's a big reason why so far I'm going to be more Ford Ranger, and it will be my pick definitely nail in the coffin, if the Ford Ranger comes with an optional V6 without having to go to the Raptor. Because I'm suspecting the Raptor is also going to be about roughly $70,000 US. And that's a lot of money. And I don't want to go there for a mid-size truck. I'll spend it in a blink of an eye on a Bronco. And I've ordered my Bronco Wild Track. It has all the off-road technology you could ever want and more. And it's got that, of course, I've had Broncos with the 10-speed. Why didn't I say Bronco? I love the 10-speed in the Broncos. I've driven at very low speeds. I've driven at extremely high speeds. And that 10-speed Bronco transmission, same thing with my Mustang, has always been fantastic. And yes, Older Porsches have an older Porsche tried to race me with my Mustang in the 10 speed, and I kind of felt like, ha ha ha, my vehicle, yes, his vehicle was older. Had it been a new Porsche, if it was just a straight 911, I would have still swamped him. That 10 speed is awesome. And I wouldn't touch, great question, the WB, I would not touch a Range Rover because they're extremely problematic even when they're brand new. People lease these things saying, I want the looks, I want a Range Rover, Land Rover, I want to head over to that, I want to support this English company, corporation. But here's the issue. People lease them to avoid problems. Hey, I'll just own it while it's on warranty. But all the people that I know, and when I say no, I don't mean people I've talked to over the internet. I mean face-to-face conversation. All of them that I've had face-to-face conversations with said, I got rid of it because it was awful. And it was an awful experience. On their way home from the dealership, they had an engine light come up or they had some sort of electronic problem. So you can have a fantastic transmission. You can have an extremely reliable motor. If you go back to old Land Rovers, the motors and transmissions could last 50 years. But as soon as they started to add electronics into them, and they had more problems. And the more electronics they added, the more problems they had. So it's an exponential problem over at Range Rover. So no, I would not take a Land Rover Range Rover. And it's not just about price. I unless I have, multiple cars, and unless they're going to be really awesome and just come pick it up at my house and bring it back to the dealership, and when it breaks, it's like, oh, I don't care, I'll take the Porsche or I'll take the Ferrari. Then yeah, maybe I'd have one of those vehicles. If I was a multi-millionaire that felt like I needed to spend all my money just on trying to please myself and not help out society and have, use my money for acts of humanity, then yeah, I might have one of these vehicles because I have 3-4 other very expensive vehicles that I can just take when, the Range Rover is being pissy. Now, will the S10 come to the US? Good question. People are always doing these, YouTube shows with GM's coming out with a new Maverick competitor. Don't buy the Maverick. You'll have this new vehicle from Toyota. Toyota's going to have a competitor for the Maverick and you'll be able to get it real soon. So don't buy a Ford. Don't buy a Ford. I don't understand those types of videos. Why really go out of your way to make stuff up to say don't buy whatever, whether it's a GM, whether it's a Toyota, whether it's a Dodge, stick to the good reasons. The S10 already is essentially a copy of the Canyon and the Colorado. Some people will say, oh no, they're different because their dimensions are a little different. Well, yes and no. The S10 is just a Brazilian assembled Colorado or Canyon, and we look down to the dimensions here. I'll slide my head over and zoom in. Okay, length 211 versus 212, and you can see there's an S10 Max and a regular S10. So yes, on the regular S10 there's a 2-inch difference versus the Colorado, but they're just playing around with essentially the same vehicle. The width 74.8, 74.3, 73.8 between the S10 Max, the Colorado, and the regular S10. Height essentially all the same, wheelbase. There are minute differences, but this is just, it's semantics. It's just playing around with things. So just like, you look at a regular, you look at a Big Ben Bronco versus a Sasquatch. It'd be like if we named those vehicles, one's a Bronco and one is whatever we want to call it. Something very different than Bronco. Give it some old, Fairlane and 500, some old Ford name. Just because the name changes and the height and the width and the clearance changes a little doesn't mean it's a whole new vehicle. So no, right now GM and Chevrolet are not in a position to just all of a sudden for 2024 have available. Maybe they'll announce it, but they're not going to have available in 6 months or less a Maverick competitor. So for all the people thinking of dropping their Maverick order because they're like, hey, I'll just wait for the new Toyota, it's going to be right around the bend because of those YouTube videos. Or the people that say I'm going to wait for a new S10 or heck, the Ford Ranchero. You don't go from unfounded rumor to available vehicle in 6 months. And I do love the WB that your family had a sedan Maverick, because the two-door Maverick vehicles, cars, look amazing. One of those fully restored is pretty darn hot. Now, don't leave, because we've got a lot more to this show, and you're not going to want to miss what's coming up, because we're going to have a few chuckles together, folks. That's right, Ridgeview. I would not touch a Fiat. I don't care how, the Fiat could come with a really beautiful, incredibly beautiful woman. Let's say I'm single. Obviously, I'm not going anywhere. Just because Marie's not here tonight doesn't mean I'm out shopping on the market here. I'm a sold man. I'm owned. So no matter what beautiful woman the Fiat would come with, they're both, a very, very beautiful woman and a Fiat are probably very similar. No matter how cute you think they are, they're probably going to cause your hair to fall out and a lot of frustration, and life's not going to be easy. It's going to be expensive, folks. So that's why I wouldn't go with a Fiat product. It's going to be expensive, folks, unless the initial buying price is very low, but then you still have the problems of repairs and just general annoyances. It's not the type of relationship I want to be in.